Yay, we're live.
Mhm.
Bonjour, welcome to Think and Grow Rich Daily Hangout. My name is Sandy Levesque, coming to you from a very windy Portugal today by the ocean. Not that you can see it, but I can see it. And it's really blustery. So if you hear strange noise effects, it's things banging around me. And I'm here with Glenn out in Tennessee. Do you want to say hi, Glenn?
Bonjour. Bonjour.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess in America they say hi all.
Yeah.
Or
Hi, y'all.
yeah, exactly. So if you're watching and you'd like to actually come into the Hangout, then you're very welcome to. Or if you're watching it later on and you are in a time zone which works to come onto the Hangout, you're very welcome to do that. You just need to join our Facebook group, and that's where I post the link each morning. So any questions about that, then just contact me on Facebook or leave a message in the events, and I'll see it. So we are actually reading about the sixth sense, and we've come up to the end of the book now, and this is one of the last steps to riches, as he outlines, but it's actually probably one of the most important ones, and he puts it at the end because he says that you need to have an understanding of all the rest of the stuff to actually be able to do the sixth sense, which is interesting. So the last time we met, which was on Friday, we read about how Napoleon had an invisible council that he spoke to every night, and by that I mean he picked people from history, and some of them were living, that he was inspired by, and he would at night time close his eyes and imagine talking to them and asking their advice about things as though they were real people next to him. And so we just read about all of that, and then the next bit's quite interesting. So I can't remember who had read. Do you want to read then, or should I read? I don't mind.
You were reading that, so, and I know that it's a topic that's dear to your heart. So it might be nice if you just continue, right? Because
Yeah. Okay.
I was
Cool.
enjoying your reading of it, actually, too.
Okay. Cool. I'll share my screen. And yeah, I was just looking at it before we started. I was like, oh yay! I do really enjoy this. I just because it's just a little bit different, and I've experienced it as well. So it's nice to see someone writing about it. So
Yes.
okay, so basically, um, oh yeah, so Napoleon has just been describing all the people that are in his meetings. I won't go back through it, but that they all had little characteristics. Like some of them were always late to the meeting. Some of them didn't like talking about the church or the state, like Napoleon Bonaparte. And so at one point, he says, which is the bit we just got to, and we're here, these meetings became so realistic that I became fearful of their consequences and discontinued them for several months. The experiences were so uncanny, I was afraid if I continued them, I would lose sight of the fact that the meetings were purely experiences of my imagination. Some 6 months after I had discontinued the practice, I was awakened one night, or thought I was, when I saw Lincoln standing at my bedside. He said, "The world will soon need your services. It is about to undergo a period of chaos which will cause men and women to lose faith and become panic-stricken. Go ahead with your work and complete your philosophy. That is your mission in life. If you neglect it for any cause whatsoever—" Oh, I think we actually read this. "You will be reduced to a primal state and be compelled to retrace the cycles through which you have already passed during thousands of years." Okay, I think we just read like maybe these two paragraphs, so I'll just keep going. "I was unable to tell the following morning whether I had dreamt this or had actually been awake, and I have never since found out which it was, but I do know that the dream, if it were a dream, was so vivid in my mind the next day that I resumed my meetings the following night. At our next meeting, the members of my cabinet all filed into the room together and stood at their accustomed places at the council table, while Lincoln raised a glass and said, 'Gentlemen, let us drink a toast to a friend who has returned to the fold.' After that, I began to add new members to my cabinet, until it now consists of more than 50, among them Christ, St. Paul, Galileo, Copernicus, Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, Homer, Voltaire, Bruno, Spinoza, Drummond, Kant, Schopenhauer, oh sorry Schopenhauer, I think I massacred your name, Newton, Confucius, oh god, Albert Hubbard, Brand, Ingersoll, Wilson, and William James. This is the first time I have had the courage to mention this. Heretofore, I have remained quiet on the subject because I knew from my own attitude in connection with such matters that I would be misunderstood if I described my unusual experience. I have been emboldened now to reduce my experience to the printed page, because I am now less concerned about what they say than I was in the years that have passed. One of the blessings of maturity is that it sometimes brings one greater courage to be truthful, regardless of what those who do not understand may think or say. Lest I be misunderstood, I wish here to state most emphatically that I still regard my cabinet meetings as being purely imaginary, but I feel entitled to suggest that while the members of my cabinet may be purely fictional and the meetings exist only in my imagination, they have led me into glorious paths of adventure, rekindled an appreciation of true greatness, encouraged creative endeavor, and emboldened the expression of honest thought. Somewhere in the cell structure of the brain is located an organ which receives vibrations of thought, ordinarily called hunches. So far, science has not discovered where this organ of the sixth sense is located, but this is not important. The fact remains that human beings do receive accurate knowledge through sources other than the physical senses. Such knowledge generally is received when the mind is under the influence of extraordinary stimulation. Any emergency which arouses the emotions and causes the heart to beat more rapidly than normal may, and generally does, bring the sixth sense into action. Anyone who has experienced a near accident while driving knows that on such occasions the sixth sense often comes to one's rescue and aids by split seconds in avoiding the accident. These facts are mentioned preliminary to a statement of fact, which I shall now make, namely that during my meetings with the invisible counselors, I find my mind most receptive to ideas, thoughts, and knowledge which reach me through the sixth sense. I can truthfully say that I owe entirely to my invisible counselors full credit for such ideas, facts, or knowledge as I received through inspiration. On scores of occasions when I have faced emergencies, some of them so grave that my life was in jeopardy, I have been miraculously guided past these difficulties through the influence of my invisible counselors. My original purpose in conducting council meetings with imaginary beings was solely that of impressing my own subconscious mind through the principle of autosuggestion with certain characteristics which I desired to acquire. In more recent years, my experimentation has taken on an entirely different trend. I now go to my imaginary counselors with every difficult problem which confronts me and my clients. The results are often astonishing, although I do not depend entirely on this form of counsel. You, of course, have recognized that this chapter covers a subject with which a majority of people are not familiar. The sixth sense is a subject that will be of great interest and benefit to the person whose aim is to accumulate vast wealth, but it need not claim the attention of those whose desires are more modest. Henry Ford undoubtedly understands and makes practical use of the sixth sense. His vast business and financial operations make it necessary for him to understand and use this principle. The late Thomas A. Edison understood and used the sixth sense in connection with the development of inventions, especially those involving basic patents, in connection with which he had no human experience and no accumulated knowledge to guide him, as was the case while he was working on the talking machine and the moving picture machine. Nearly all great leaders such as Napoleon, Bismarck, Joan of Arc, Christ, Buddha, Confucius, and Muhammad understood and probably made use of the sixth sense almost continuously. The major portion of their greatness consisted of their knowledge of this principle. The sixth sense is not something one can take off and put on at will. Ability to use this great power comes slowly through application of the other principles outlined in this book. Seldom does any individual come into workable knowledge of the sixth sense before the age of 40. More often, the knowledge is not available until one is well past 50, and this for the reason that the spiritual forces with which the sixth sense is so closely related do not mature and become usable except through years of meditation, self-examination, and serious thought. No matter who you are, or what may have been your purpose in reading this book, you can profit by it without understanding the principle described in this chapter. This is especially true if your major purpose is that of accumulation of money or of other material things. The chapter on the sixth sense was included because this book is designed for the purpose of presenting a complete philosophy by which individuals may unerringly guide themselves in attaining whatever they ask of life. The starting point of all achievement is desire. The finishing point is that brand of knowledge which leads to understanding, understanding of self, understanding of others, understanding of the laws of nature, recognition and understanding of happiness. This sort of understanding comes in its fullness only through familiarity with and use of the principle of the sixth sense. Hence that principle had to be included as a part of this philosophy for the benefit of those who demand more than money. Having read the chapter, you must have observed that while reading it, you were lifted to a high level of mental stimulation. Splendid! Come back to this again a month from now, read it once more, and observe that your mind will soar to a still higher level of stimulation. Repeat this experience from time to time, giving no concern as to how much or how little you learn at the time, and eventually you will find yourself in possession of a power that will enable you to throw off discouragement, master fear, overcome procrastination, and draw freely upon your imagination. Then you will have felt the touch of that unknown something which has been the moving spirit of every truly great thinker, leader, artist, musician, writer, and statesman. Then you will be in a position to transmute your desires into their physical or financial counterpart as easily as you may lie down and quit at the first sign of opposition. Faith versus fear. Previous chapters have described how to develop faith. Oh, just taking a drink. Through autosuggestion, desire, and the subconscious. The next chapter presents detailed instructions for the mastery of fear. Here will be found a full description of the 6 fears which are the cause of all discouragement, timidity, procrastination, indifference, indecision, and the lack of ambition, self-reliance, initiative, self-control, and enthusiasm. Search yourself carefully as you study these 6 enemies, as they may exist only in your subconscious mind, where their presence will be hard to detect. Remember, too, as you analyze the 6 ghosts of fear, that they are nothing but ghosts, because they exist only in one's mind. Remember also that ghosts, creations of uncontrolled imagination, have caused most of the damage people have done to their own minds. Therefore, ghosts can be just as dangerous as if they lived and walked on the earth in physical bodies. The ghost of the fear of poverty, which seized the minds of millions of people in 1929, was so real that it caused the worst business depression this country has ever known. Moreover, this particular ghost still frightens some of us out of our wits. Okay, so that's the end of the chapter. So many ideas as reading that.
Developing the muscle, right? The muscle of the sixth sense, really, which is what he's trying to stress there, I think, right?
Yeah.
And don't you think now, after you've read the other book, that this plays right exactly into that, right? Now, as you're a co-creator in the quantum field, right? The quantum field reflects back to you.
Exactly. Yeah, what Glenn's talking about is the book Why Quantum Physicists Do Not Fail, and one of the things it talks about is how it's actually also what you see in the Science of Getting Rich. It reminded me of the same principle where there's, in the Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles, he talks about there is a thinking stuff of which all things are made, and you are part of it. So what you think is that's why what you think becomes what you see in your reality. And in this book, Why Quantum Physicists Do Not Fail, he talks about it as a quantum field, which I really like. It's like it's like he describes it like there's this huge quantum field which is like a big river. Yeah. And it wants you to be, playing in the river, being part of the river, but our minds tell us that we can't have water, or that we can't go in the river, that there's not, that there's not enough of anything, and so it's usually our own limitations that stop us being able to have anything we want from the quantum field.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's that whole chapter is very interesting because as he had begun with creating his counselors, right? I guess we'll call them, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and remember, he chose each one for an attribute that he kind of wanted to build into himself too.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the
So,
interesting thing.
yeah, so that allowed him to resonate now with that truth, whatever that truth was from that particular person, right? And you know what Mary says is you step up your vibration, and the way you step it up is you emotionally take it into you. You know, in other words, your emotions are what help to step up your vibrations and link to what you're trying to achieve. You know, in the
Yeah. So
what
what
you're
you're
trying to
saying
reach
is that,
for. Yeah, in the
yeah,
creative plane. You know.
yeah. So what exactly? So what he's suggesting is actually a way to change your overall vibration because you start tuning into greatness, you know, or tuning
Yes.
into the energy of people that have done certain things you wanted to do. Um, and I really like it because I think, you know, when people hear the words "The Sixth Sense," they tend to think of Bruce Willis and
Movie.
that
Yeah.
scary movie and I remember doing some classes a while back on like psychic ability and the person running that workshop talked about it a lot how the Sixth Sense has got a kind of a bad image now because of Hollywood, you know, like it's seen as that when you do see things that you're seeing scary things or things that could be malicious and people are scared to like when Napoleon said in the book here that most people's ability doesn't start till the age of 40 or 50, I
Uh,
was laughing inside because I was thinking I actually, then I realized something, but at first I thought that's not true because I think children are very psychic. And then what I realized was that um, we don't exactly get encouraged to do what he's talking about here. And a lot of people, and this is what I learned in these workshops, a lot of people kind of are very aware as children. You know, they see things they out of the corner of their eye, or they just they're aware of things they can't really describe. And because adults don't talk about it, it's seen as not really being real. Um, and this is just this time in history. You know, about 500 years ago, it wasn't like this. You know, Shakespeare talked about ghosts very normally in his plays and his work, but
yes.
now it's become this woo-woo thing. And so what I think Napoleon's alluding to is the fact that we learn to sort of pretend it's not there. And then as the more self-aware you become, the more you start to realize, oh, hang on, I do have this connection to other things, to the quantum field, to infinite intelligence. Why don't I use it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Why not use it, right? Why not develop it in yourself?
Yeah,
Sure.
exactly. And just, this is more kind of to do with the fear part, but I talked about it last week, but it's just so powerful. The book Unbroken. Did you have a chance to read that, Glenn?
You know, I'm at about 42%. I've been reading it every day, you know, but
Ah, yeah, it's
it's a long
amazing.
book, you know, but it's excellent. It's
Yeah.
oh, and I wanted to make a recommendation to you after reading. I mean, so far I'm right up to where he has left the place where he had been in prison for interrogation.
Ah, yeah.
He's being taken to a prisoner of war camp. And I wanted to recommend you a movie because I know that you like good movies. There's a movie called Bridge on the River Kwai,
Oh,
which will
okay.
give you an insight into the Japanese incarceration of prisoners of war.
Ah,
Yeah,
Bridge on the River of Kai. Okay.
Bridge on the River Kwai, Kwai, believe it is. Yeah,
Ah. Oh,
Alec
cool.
Guinness.
Okay.
It's an Academy Award-winning movie. It's about 60 years old, but it's wonderful.
Ah. Oh, great. Yeah. Well, oh,
Have it on your
yeah.
list.
'Cause
Yeah.
that book came to my mind because you know it's a book about for you guys watching. Um, I've just lost my brain there. About a guy who was in the Second World War. He was an Olympic athlete. He was a very fast man, and he got his plane had a crash into the Pacific Ocean, and three of them survived the crash miraculously out of about 12 guys, 12 men, 10 men. And the book is it's about his whole life actually, which is just fascinating. But there's a passage where three of them are left at sea, and they have two life rafts on which they can survive. And two of them tell each other stories to keep their morale high, to keep their mind on positive things. And one of them allows himself to be consumed by fear. And that last paragraph we just read in the book, to me, it's so true. You know, like the third guy, he didn't take part in their stories they were telling each other. He kind of withdrew into himself and focused on the worst things that could happen, like dying, like getting eaten by sharks, like no one coming to rescue them. And he actually died. You know, he physically got weaker by the day. Do you remember that, Glenn?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, his way of thinking and being consumed by fear literally made him weaker and eventually led to his slow death on that ocean. And the other two men survived, and one of them lived till he was 90 years old. It's amazing. Yeah. So that's and also that story is an example of using the sixth sense, because Louis, the main guy, the Olympic athlete, he speaks about how when he was on that ocean and trying to draw strength from wherever he could, because, you know, when you're in the sun, you have sharks all around you that want to eat you, no food, no water, no way of contacting anyone. Can you imagine how hopeless you would feel? And he describes, you know, feeling like this huge connection to to the universe, to God, to the world, even in that moment of struggle, and how he said to God, you know, if you save me, I will serve you, you know, for the rest of my life, and has this kind of dialogue, you know, like praying, and so that's another way of having that connection, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, and also, you know, I think when he did the meals thing, right, where he was actually preparing the meals locally, right? They were preparing the meals. I think his mom was sort of like the person that he had created in that, because he was talking about how his mom did the meals and he could utilize everything, and so she was kind of like in a vibration with him, I think, you know. And remember, she never gave up on him being found.
Exactly. Yeah, that was really beautiful in the book. Like the mom, the family are told that the men have died after the plane crash, because no one knows that they survived, and the family refuses to believe it, and it's so touching. They just refuse it, and they don't allow people to talk about. They don't talk about him as if he's dead. They talk about him in the present tense, and also one of the girlfriend of one of the two men, actually not the athlete, the second man, she goes to see a fortune teller who tells her that he's not dead and that he'll be found before Christmas, and they are found. That not for the rest of the world yet. They're found by Japanese boat, unfortunately, that takes them to a prisoner of war camp. But at least they're alive, you know. So yeah, it's loads of and the other thing I was going to mention was Seabiscuit. Have you seen the film Seabiscuit, Glenn?
Oh yes, yeah, I've seen it. Yeah. Did you see it?
Yeah, I saw it this weekend, and it's I'd recommend that as well, because it's another example of, because, you know, he's talking in this chapter about the depression and how everyone's kind of gripped by this fear.
Right.
Well, that Seabiscuit kind of shows you that, because it's about a horse who raced at the time of the depression, and he becomes like this mascot for so many people, because he's given up on by the first owners he has, because he's a small horse. They think he's lazy. He doesn't win any races, and they just, you know, they give up on him. And he is bought by two men, and one in particular that sees that he has this spirit in him, and does what he can to bring that spirit out. And it's a beautiful story, and just the horse starts to become one of the fastest horses in American history.
This is the one with Jeff Bridges, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
What isn't that a wonderful movie? That is
Oh,
so
it's
wonderful.
beautiful. Yeah, it's an amazing testament to everything Napoleon's talking about in this book because the
Yeah.
horse has persistence. Well, and the owners have persistence. They keep going. They have belief in Seabiscuit, and that makes him believe in himself. And they don't listen to other people, even when other people are laughing at them, saying, "Oh, that horse is so small," you know. And it's just, and they don't allow fear to take root. So
Yeah.
it's great. Yeah.
Also written by Laura Hildebrand, the book.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And she, I read about her. She has a chronic fatigue syndrome.
Yes.
So she
Yeah.
says she likes to write about these people that have had amazing stories. It's like she's living vicariously through
Yes.
them.
Yeah. And she's
Yeah,
talked so brilliantly about them. You know, both
yeah, it's amazing.
both of those books
Yeah,
are quite amazing. You know.
yeah. And actually, the one last thing I can share, we're going off a bit all over the place today, but that chapter just does bring up loads of different things. um, but actually, I think I've mentioned this a while back, but years ago, before I was even reading anything like this, it, I actually lived with a woman who was doing a PhD. I was at college or university, we call it in Britain, and in my first year, and I was in a dorm, and one of the girls in my dorm was older than me, and she was in a wheelchair, and she had a French girl who was her carer, and she had chronic fatigue syndrome, and she had such a bad case of it that her muscles had atrophied, so her muscles weren't working anymore. She couldn't stand up, and so she had this girl who would cook for her, take her to university, and she was very bright. She was a biologist doing a PhD, sorry. But anyway, the amazing thing with this woman was that she was worried about where she was going to live the next year because she wouldn't be able to live in dorms again, and she needed to be able to have a carer living with her. So she was talking to us about this, and then we went off for the summer vacation and came back the following year and sort of lost touch with her a bit. We weren't um, massively close because she was a bit older than my friends and I. But I bumped into her one day with another friend, and we didn't recognize her because she looked so different. She wasn't in a wheelchair anymore, and this is totally relevant to Think and Grow Rich, by the way, guys, because you'll see in a second how she did this. She was standing up. Her hair was shiny, and I'd never seen her with shiny hair because she always had, like before, it was like she was wasting away, literally. Like even though she was a very alert mind, her body was really weak. So she had shiny, glossy hair. Her face was like it wasn't sunken in like it used to be. She had muscles. She was alive. Like it was we walked past her. She recognized us. You know, this is how different she looked, and we were just amazed. So my friend and I said, "Well, come for dinner. We want to know what happened." So she came around, and she basically told us that when she'd gone home that summer, she realized how helpless she was and that she might not be able to continue studying because she might not have a room for her carer, and how she just decided that she'd had enough of living like that and she was going to get better. And so she said she didn't tell anyone, and she was very Christian, so she said she prayed every day, and that every day she would ask God to help her walk a bit, and she would make herself get out of her chair and walk a tiny bit, and then she'd fall back in the chair. And she had to do it in secret. She knew if her family knew, they'd get annoyed and tell her not to be taking a risk, because her bones are very weak as well, so if she fell, she could really injure herself. But so she did it in secret, and she did it every day over 2.5 months, and by about 6 weeks in, she was able to walk about 5 meters, and then she just kept going and going, and then eventually didn't even need the wheelchair anymore, and now she was living in a dorm like everyone else, no carer anymore. It was just amazing. I've never forgotten that her, and I still see her now, like in my mind. And so she did it through the power of her mind and the
Yeah.
power of faith as well. You know, like
Yeah. Triumph
belief.
of spirit. Right.
Yeah,
Triumph
exactly.
of spirit. Much like Seabiscuit, much like Louis Zachary.
Totally. It's the same
Much
thing,
like
isn't it?
you, I mean, really, much like everybody, right? I mean, everybody
Yeah. We all
has.
have it in us to do that. Yeah.
Yes,
It's just amazing. Sometimes we just have to remember it.
yes, yeah,
Uh,
we do. Oh yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I was going to tell you something uh, that I heard Mary say. Uh, is St. Augustine said, most men go and travel the world. They see the great mountains, the great ravines. They look at the stars and everything, and then they pass by the wonder of themselves.
Oh, wow.
Think
You
about it.
have beautiful ways of saying things. I love the things you share from
Well,
uh,
this is from Mary Morrissey, and
yeah. No,
and but I love the stuff that she imparts because I'm not a kid. I mean, I've been around a long time, but I love the way that she put together her stuff. I think it's pretty remarkable. Remarkable.
yeah. I love that. And so we go past the wonder of ourselves. Is that how you said it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact,
Oh,
I'll play. I should play it for you, really, if I
oh,
can.
you have it?
Yeah, I've got it here.
Ah,
Just got to bring it
cool.
up. I've got to bring it back to the beginning here.
Ah.
Let's see. It'll be on just a second here. This is one of her dream builder modules that we do.
St. Augustine has said, men go abroad to wonder at the heights of mountains, at the huge waves of the sea, at the long courses of the rivers, at the vast compass of the oceans, at the circular motion of the stars. They do all that, and they pass themselves by without wonder. So welcome back. You've become a dream builder. And as a
Do you
dream
like
builder,
that?
Yeah, I do actually. It's so true. People often discount
Yeah.
their own greatness.
The
Yeah.
wonder of themselves. The wonder, right? The wonder of ourselves. We don't have to go outside of ourselves to find beauty and everything like that, right? But it's nice. I mean, I love to travel and I love to do all those things too. But you can start with yourself, right? Oops.
Sense because we're part of it, aren't we? So
Yeah.
if we admire those things, then we admire. Then we're actually part of it. And those things admire us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for playing that.
Yeah. You're welcome.
Cool. Okay. Well. Oh, and look out for today because I might be interviewing the author of the book we've been talking about the past week of Why Quantum Physicists Do Not Fail.
I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, I know, me too. So that will be at 3 p.m. US Eastern. Sorry, my dog whining. 9 o'clock in Central Europe, 8 o'clock in London or Lisbon, if it's happening. So, because I said either today or next week. And
By the way,
yeah.
He lives 2 hours from me in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh wow. Oh, he lives in Louisville. Oh, that's funny. After reading Unbroken, the main character is called Louis, by the way, if you're wondering what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, wow.
Yeah.
Is it all coincidental?
Yeah, exactly. How to keep memory alive. Oh, cool. So look out for that. I'll post about it on my Facebook wall. It'll be on this channel though as well if you're following on Google Plus. So have a great day, everyone, and let's remember to not bypass the wonder of ourselves. I love that. Thank you, Glenn.
Have a great day, Cindy.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.